Even in Argentina, there was a phase in my career where I was homeless. Portray out to the world that it's like shiny and yachts and cars and the dream, but also business can go very wrong if you don't know what you're doing and if you don't have a framework to make decisions. When I had a fashion line, I experienced a lot of failed launches.
What's the limit on the business? It's not those structures, it's not those things, it's the business owner, it's what's going on between your ears. Welcome to today's edition of Free to Lead, Journeys of Leaders, driven by passion, inspired by purpose. And today I have Celie Arias, who has her own business, empowering CEOs. And as she says, they come at the end of their rope, emotionally drained, physically exhausted, and facing unbreakable revenue plateaus. Now, that might sound like some of you listening to this podcast. So it's a great opportunity to get inside the world of someone that empowers CEOs who are kind of facing burnout. So, Celie, welcome to Free to Lead.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We'd love to hear your backstory, how you, and a bit about your business, what you do, like that. So how did you get into empowering CEOs who are burning out?
Yeah, it's a fun story, actually. I have been building businesses for 25 years. And when I say that, people don't believe me. I am older than I look. And I started my first business when I was about 10. I was an immigrant to this country. I'm from Argentina. And I really, really wanted to take ballet. And I knew my mother, I knew I couldn't even ask because I knew she couldn't afford it. My mother had recently divorced and I knew that it just wasn't going to happen. But you know, in the US, when you're little, I don't know if they do this anymore because it's probably not as safe as it was back then. But you know, they get kids to go door to door and sell like ribbons and jars of candles, and like from a very early age, you learn how to do door-to-door sales in the US if you're an 80s kid. And so I just thought, I can go door to door and sell babysitting because I was a very mature and responsible kid. And I actually coerced my slightly older friends who were taller than me and more developed to go door to door with me and sell a babysitting service that they would never do. And I would be the one who would show up and do the babysitting. So I ran that business and had regular clients all the way from the age of 10 to 18 before I went off to college. And I paid for ballet and actually became a professional dancer. That was my first career, but I paid for a lot of that myself through my babysitting.
Wow.
So I always say, I find that entrepreneurs and business owners typically are wired at an early age where they see a problem or see something that doesn't work in the world and they want to fix it, right? If that's your inclination, there's something entrepreneurial about you where you're like, that doesn't work very well and that could be different or it could be better. I want to fix it. You're probably an entrepreneur. And that was the case for me. And ever since then, I've started businesses. So after going to a conservatory for dance and having danced professionally around the world, I also learned to sew and make things. So I thought, I want to go to design school. So I moved back to Argentina and went to fashion design school. But sure enough, in my first year of design school, I started a clothing brand, kind of as a fun experiment. But I ended up running that clothing brand for 10 years and creating a niche global clothing brand. So it's just kind of in me to build businesses. But of course, I would say that clothing brand ran me. I was definitely in my 20s. I did this in my 20s. I never partied. I lived in Argentina and people are like, have you been to Perito Moreno? And I'm like, no. Have you been to Patagonia? No. Have you been to Iguazu? And I'm like, no. And they're like, what are you doing? You're living in Argentina. You're not doing all these things. And I'm like, I'm running my fashion brand. What do you mean? What am I doing? I work 7 days a week. I worked 7 days a week for 10 years. So I always say that business ran me. And I've made all the mistakes. And then I went and got an MBA, hoping that that would teach me something about business. And it was fun to get an MBA, but it doesn't actually, it's not really applicable to entrepreneurship and small business. It's very theory based. So I have one of those, but I don't really apply it that much. And over time, I've worked for startups. I closed my clothing company because I was exhausted. I've worked for startups as a director of marketing, turned operations director, turned COO. I've worked in corporate sales. I've over time been in all the seats. And then I started coaching and consulting on the side from this place of I've been there. I've made a lot of the mistakes. I've felt the pain. And how do I help people avoid the pain if possible? So
Mm.
that's kind of what's gotten me here. And I always say, like, even in Argentina, there was a phase in my career where I was homeless. So I think that there's this idea around business and entrepreneurship that we portray out to the world that it's like shiny and yachts and cars and the dream, but also business can go very wrong if you don't know what you're doing and if you don't have a framework to make decisions. And I've been there too. That's why I built the Grown Ass business and the method that I've developed over probably the past 20 years of being in businesses.
Underlined a few things there. What would you say one of your biggest challenges was along that journey?
Earlier on, I think there's different challenges at different stages of business.
Hmm.
So, my biggest challenge to get over was I was a creative, I was a designer. I leaned on my creativity to build the business. And I really didn't want to look at the numbers, profit margins, pricing strategy. I didn't want to look at an Excel sheet. I mean, I was allergic, which is ironic now if you knew what I teach all day. But that was my biggest mistake early on. I think that when you don't have a sales projections plan and you don't understand your pricing and your profitability, you overcompensate for that by overworking. So when
Yeah.
you don't have a clear strategy and a clear understanding of how business works, you're going to overcompensate for that. And a lot of times, business owners who are overwhelmed, burnt out, or on the edge of burnout, or kind of living on that edge all the time, it's actually because you're probably just overcompensating in a key department where you feel like you don't have the skill or you're scared that you don't have the skill, right? So you're overcompensating in your strength areas rather than going, you know what, let me just sit down and look at these numbers. So that was my first mistake early on, was not looking at the numbers, not having a sales projections plan meant I never took a vacation. I never took a
Mm.
break.
And any failures along the way, like an actual failure that you could say, "Yep, that I really failed there," but you learned something from it?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I
Well,
don't, too many to count.
that's good to
Um,
hear. That's good to hear because some people, they have this notion that, they just don't want to make a mistake or screw it up. And that really does stop them moving forward. So if you could share one of yours, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think all businesses launch, whether you are a physical good product or a virtual online digital product. You have to launch a product into the world, right? Nike and Apple still launch products out into the world, okay? So I feel like there's this adversity to the word launch and having to create a launch, and online business owners are like, oh, that was a failed launch. I feel like such a failure. When I had a fashion line, I experienced a lot of failed launches. When you're dealing with a business that has timelines around supply chain and production and making a thing in time for a certain event or a certain thing you've been promoting, or you have a certain event, but you don't have the time to actually promote it and market it and create a launch. I've had many failed launches in various businesses in various forms. And I think it's just an important thing to say. Because I think there's this like belief where we see a lot of people boast, I had a 6-figure launch last year, so you should hire me as your coach because I had one 6-figure launch. It's like, cool. How many failed launches did you have? Let's
Yeah.
be real about that. Let's give context to that. And also, I hope you've had failed launches. If you've had failed launches, you are learning something and you're doing something well. And you're hopefully every single time you learn something from those, right?
Mm. Yes.
So, and sometimes it's like, oh gosh, don't say yes to an event if you're not going to have the product in hand. There's a lesson. Don't spend all your energy on creating and cutting and building the product and not talking about it. I've done that in my digital business and in physical goods business. So when you spend, this is a thing a lot of us perfectionists do, spend so much time obsessing about the product and making it better and better and better that you forgot to tell people about it.
Yes.
And you're like, oh yeah, my program's launching next week. Do you want it? It's going to be amazing. And people are like, well, it's next week. I don't I'm busy. I don't have time for that. Or
Yep.
I've definitely had that where I've gotten on sales calls with people and I would say, this happened to me last year once. Oh, my accelerator starts next week. And this person was like, gosh, you just haven't been talking about it at all. Like, did you even do a launch? Good feedback. Thank you. I obviously haven't been talking about it enough.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've made a million mistakes. I mean,
Yep.
bad partners, hiring people without a clear contract because you just trust them and like them. That's a doozy. That's
Yeah.
gotten me into big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, probably like list the list of mistakes you can make. I can check them all off and say, yep, 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 done that. Worn all the
Yeah.
hats to the point where I was the photographer and the graphic designer and the like I've done it all. I've made all the mistakes.
Great. All right. Well, what would you say to somebody who's struggling at some juncture in their business right now, similar to some of the things you just talked about?
The thing is, it's always important to look at the thing that you believe that you're struggling with. Because a lot of times we get laser focused on what we think the struggle is, and it's often something else. It's much like medicine, right? The symptom is just a part of a greater problem, or it's an effect
Mm.
of a greater cause, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same in business. It's like, let me give you an example. A lot of people come to me, and even though I've made content about this and I've made trainings about this, they'll still come to me and say, I just need more leads. I just
Mm.
need more leads in my business. If I just had more leads, everything would be fine. That is never the problem. I've been coaching for years, and it has never been the case. Because getting leads is actually pretty easy, but we have to figure out what's really going on in your business and in your mind and in your strategy. Where are the gaps? What's missing? Is it in your pricing? Is it in your product? Is it in how you're talking about the product? Is it in your offer suite? Is it in your messaging? Where is the real gap? Because when you
Mm.
fix those gaps, then suddenly like, oh, the leads show up,
Yep.
right? Or is it just that you are trying on somebody else's strategy because they told you it worked, and you haven't figured out what's the right strategy for you, your business, and your audience,
Mm.
right? So that's a
Yep.
really common one where people are like, you know what, can you just get me more leads? If I just got more leads, I'd be fine. I'm
Yep.
like, well, if that were true, that last lead gen VA you hired or that last cold outreach email company you hired would have worked and would have solved your problem.
Yeah. Well, I often say, what's the limit on the business? It's not those structures. It's not those things. It's the business owner. It's what's going on between your ears. It's like what's going on there that's getting in your way, slowing you down, stopping you, even sabotaging your success. There's so much going on in
Totally.
the background that it's hard on your own to be aware of. So, when I work with people, I'm listening for not like you said, the leads. So we haven't got the leads, we haven't got the this, or this is not working. I've tried this and I've tried that. Yeah. What's going on that's driving that? What's going on that's having you go there? Right. So we get to what's going on. Yeah. So I completely
Totally.
align with what you're saying there. And also, focus on that point, but what have you missed out? What didn't you do? Because performance is simply action or non-action. So you've either, what actions have you taken or what actions didn't you take? What
Yeah.
did you do before that you didn't do this time? Literally taking it apart.
So I have a newborn, which means I wake up in the middle of the night and then I can't
Mm,
fall back asleep. So then I get ideas of blogs I should write and things I should be doing.
yes.
But I was just thinking about this last night and I was thinking, I have to tell the story. I need to write the story, but I'll tell it to you. I
Yeah.
had a client once, came to me for growth strategy and I laid out her whole growth strategy for her business. And she would always come back to me and just say, give me something else. That's not it. That's not the strat. It didn't work. It's not
Mm,
working. It's not working. Give me something else. Like week over week, right? I'm like, well, how long did you try it? Did you do it? How long did you give it? Like, that's not how strategy works, right? But
right.
every week she'd be like, do you got something else? What else you got? It was literally like, what else you got back there? Come on, if you're really that good and you're that good of a strategist, what else you got back there? And the truth is, the problem isn't the strategy. The problem is you. No strategy is going to magically work if you don't believe it, if you don't put your action into it, if you don't put some skin in the game, and if you don't actually execute it consistently. And that's not a strategy problem. That's not a I gave you the wrong strategy. That's a you're unwilling to get a little uncomfortable and take an action that requires you to put yourself out there and do things a little bit differently than you've been doing them. And so that I've had some experiences like that in the past, and that was a catalyst for me going and getting mindset certified to be a certified mindset coach. And I
Right.
combined my method mindset with the key growth systems and strategy because I found that I can give somebody the right strategy for them and their business, and I know that it's going to work. But if there is something blocking them, or they don't believe in it, or they're not going to take action on it, that strategy is
Yep.
never going to work.
Yes, absolutely. Tony Robbins says, business is 90% psychology. And he's got strategies coming out of his ears. You go to one of his events, he's telling you got to do this, the 3 keys to that, 7 keys to that. But none of it will work if you don't implement it, if you don't actually follow it through. Without integrity, things won't work. So if they say, oh, this strategy doesn't work, you say, well, did you do it? Right. Okay, what did you do? And then you go through it with them. You get this to work before I give you something new. What's the point? You haven't tried
Yeah.
this properly yet. Awesome. Really great. All right, good. Well, how would people reach out to you, get in touch with you if they were interested in your skill set, what you can provide for business CEOs, you said, right? CEOs or business owners, entrepreneurs.
Yep.
How would they
Uh,
get hold of you?
Easy if you like Instagram or YouTube or social media. I'm easy to find. It's CELI Grows Business. So Celie Grows Business. Or you can check out my website, Grown Ass Business, which is very easy to remember.
So grows business, GROWS. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Great. Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on the show. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us your story and your insights.
Yeah, you're so welcome.